like to thank these guys for being brave enough to sit in the front. You'll have to forgive my notes. I'm used to writing with or speaking with a brush, but artists, we really are the most dangerous class because we really rub elbows with everybody. One day you're hanging out with people on Skid Row, the next day you're hanging out with the congressman eating store-bought burgers, and life's good. So we really get to see all aspects of life, and we get to see how communities get destroyed and get rebuilt. And graffiti has a lot to do with that. Like he was saying, a lot of graffiti is really looked down upon. But that's because it's done poorly or it's done in the wrong way, right? So graffiti has obviously been something that's been a part of our human existence since forever, right? So what else do we have that's so inherently built into us?
Sorry, I have to stop this. We gotta move your mic.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, drawing on walls, it comes just as naturally as dancing or singing or anything like that, right? But it's just something that's completely restricted. It's a form of human expression that's really looked down upon once you get past the age of, well, I guess as soon as you can start drawing on a wall. So I want to talk about the genesis of kind of street art and where it comes from, because I feel like a big problem and why it's not accepted as much as maybe it could be is because it's not really understood properly. The first people that kind of were like street artists or graffiti artists were hobos. And what they would do is they would put these markings down on places that they would stay, and it would tell the other hobos what was going on in that area. Oh, you could get food here, this person's nice, there's a dog here, you'll get eaten, don't go here. Officer of the law lives here, don't mess with this house or whatever. And then that evolved into they would start writing on trains, leaving each other messages on trains, and then that became something that kids started to pick up, and then they would start writing more of their names on trains and would get around. One of the first street artists ever was Basquiat. I'm sure you guys are familiar with him, but he got his start by just daubing on walls, and then there was the famous Andy Warhol meeting, but whatever. And I like to talk about where the word graffiti comes from. It comes from the word sgraffiti, meaning drawing or scribblings on a flat surface, derived from the Italian word sgraffio, which meant scratch. There's also, with a nod to the Greek word graphin, or to write. And tagging is a modern form of scratching one's name on a wall. So the title of this talk is preserving, right? And most people would never think about graffiti as a way to preserve anything, right? They think about it as it destroys things. But it destroys it preserves our human experience like in ways that couldn't be done in other ways that last for, hey, what's up, Trey? So my old art school buddy. It's a way that it preserves our human experience, like going back to the cave drawing, right? It's like, this was just some guy who decided to like draw in a cave, but now it just tells us everything about what they're experiencing back at that time. And that's kind of what's also happening with like graffiti in the cities, right? So it's like you have graffiti in Los Angeles and it's like everywhere and it's all broken and there's scribblings everywhere, but then you go to Santa Monica and it's all beautiful, right? But it's just kind of a reflection of what's going on in that area at that time. So my question is graffiti an open wound on our communities, or is it a Band-Aid that helps to heal those wounds? And in my experience, and it gets played out through real estate, is it's a Band-Aid, right? So like a great example is the art district in Los Angeles. Like 20 years ago, you couldn't walk down that place at past 7 o'clock without getting like a 50% chance of not making it back, Now it's one of the most expensive places to live in Los Angeles. And how did that happen? Well, it's because artists went down there, street artists, graffiti artists, and started leaving their mark, and then it became like cool. So then like all the people that had money moved in there, and they really gentrified the place and rebuilt it, and all the artists got kicked out, and then they move on to continue that cycle in another community, So I also want to talk about another Banksy quote. Have you guys ever heard of the broken window theory? Okay, some of you guys have. So the broken window theory basically was a theory that got developed in the 80s These criminologists argued that if somebody walks by and sees a broken window and it doesn't get fixed, and people just say, well, nobody cares about this area, and they'll break more windows, and then crime will continue to happen, and it will just get worse and worse and worse and worse. So I would like to counter that with a funny Banksy story. So anyway, so the broken window theory, that's what built into the crackdown on graffiti in New York, where it got to the point where you could put a sticker on a wall and you could do 5 months in jail for a sticker. And I've had friends that have done 5 months in jail for a sticker in New York. It's pretty funny, I'm not gonna lie, but still. All right, so this is a letter that Banksy got to his website. I don't know who you are or how many of you there are, but I'm asking you to stop painting your things where we live, in particular, XXX Road in Hackney. My brother and me were born here and have lived here all our lives, but these days so many yuppies and students are moving here, neither of us can afford to buy a house where we grew up. Your graffitis are undoubtedly part of what makes these wankers think our area is cool. You're obviously not from around here, and after you've driven up the house prices, you'll probably just move on. Do us all a favor and go do your stuff in Brixton. Name withheld. So it can really help to heal. It can really help to preserve our communities. Another example is the downtown Los Angeles area, around Broadway. There's all these murals popping up. Younger people are getting interested in the area. They're moving back over there. They're revitalizing the area. Foot traffic's way up. And then businesses have the money to rebuild the area. Now it's becoming beautiful again. And it's becoming something that people go down there to enjoy. Banksy's broken window. So most people, when they think of graffiti, they think of something like this, right? It's just a broken wall. It's got the art everywhere. It looks pretty horrible, right? I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That one's all right, but eh. So my point is people drawing on walls, it's inevitable. It's gonna happen, right? What we need to do is do like what Santa Monica did, is embrace the art. Because what happens is there's a hierarchy to art in the street, okay? So a piece like this can only you can only go over it with a piece like this. And then a piece like this, you can only go over it with a mural. And then a mural, nobody will go over that for the most part, unless people are just completely disrespectful and they don't know what the rules are for the street, right? So when you have murals getting produced in your city, it actually will drive down graffiti, which is pretty crazy. And that's like a big difference between like Los Angeles and Santa Monica and more posh areas like that. You know, this is like a Santa Monica mural. Nobody would have a problem with that showing up on their wall, probably, right? They'd be like, tight, I didn't even have to pay for that. Oh, it's great. But you see this guy and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna get fined by the city. It's horrible. So, yeah, I believe a big problem is just the misunderstanding about what the form is. And this, the scene, the street art scene was built by taggers, right? Like we wouldn't have muralists if it wasn't for taggers. We wouldn't have a point where like, oh, Banksy could like, you know, sell paintings for $50 million if there wasn't taggers, right? So they really built the community. And then what happened is more professional artists came through and they had more skill and they kind of took the limelight, right? And then so you have these kids that they came up through the scene, they're writers or whatever, and they don't really have an outlet because nobody's ever really shown them like how they can be a productive member of society as an artist, how they can make an income as an artist. So I really think the main thing that we should do is build programs for these kids to foster their creativity and foster their ability to become successful members of our community and to help preserve our communities and rebuild our communities. Let's see. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys are all aware of Banksy, right? Like, his art's gotten to the point where, like, if he puts a stencil on a wall, the city will come through and put plexiglass over it to protect it and preserve it, right? And then you have Swiss graffiti in Singapore getting caned for, like, So it's like, what's the difference? It's the perception, it's how it's done, and it's who does it. Here's another great example. You guys are all aware of like Venice Beach, the graffiti walls that they have over there. They're like, man, these guys will not stop tagging our city. Let's just give them an area to tag where everybody's gonna come and take photos. They can get their limelight, They can become better artists. And it's become like a community hub. Like people come from all over the world to take a photo of that now. So it's pretty big. It's all about how we embrace it and what we can do, because it's not gonna stop. So here's an example of a mural I did over in Skid Row. This corner's pretty gnarly. It's at 4th and Winston. There's a lot of prostitution there. They found bodies like dumped over there and stuff like that. And it's just basically a horrible area to live, you know what I mean? Nobody wants to go over there. But me and a bunch of other artists started like putting all these murals up and stuff like that. It started becoming like a little hub. People go down there, they do like art tours and stuff like this. And while I'm painting it, you have the people that live out there, especially like the women, that they live in tents and stuff like that. And they're like, thank you so much for coming down here and painting it. Like this is like the one ray of light that I get every day that I walk down here. This gives me a little bit of hope. It kind of restores my warmth. It preserves me as a person. And it's just like, it's so powerful. It's really hard to put it into words, like unless you go down there and really talk to these people that live down there. And like I was saying is, like when you paint at night, the amount of like homeless people you talk to and just get to know and like hear their stories and stuff, it's really eye-opening. So it's a really big deal. I think it's something that we should definitely promote in the right way and figure out how to foster with the kids that are in these situations. Teach them how to be artists. Like you guys are in like a great position to like help kids like this. I work with a program called Oasis, and that's kind of like our main gig. We go to like underfunded schools and we give them art programs that don't exist. So we just did like a graphic design program this last year, and we showed them how to like design their own t-shirts and get them printed and make stickers and stuff like that and build their own clothing line. We had them like set up a web store so they could sell their shirts, and they started hustling some of their shirts to their homies. But it's really cool to see, because they're like, wow, I can make money with my art, you know what I mean? I don't just have to like go write on a wall and or like be a part of a gang to like preserve myself or live. So yeah, let's see. And generally, like, people like me, we don't like tagging either, right? Because we do a beautiful mural, and then some kid that doesn't know the rules comes along and he tags over it, and you're like, oh, damn, now I gotta go fix it or whatever. But like, we get it. So people like me, we really wanna like give back and try to figure out the problem and the solution with you guys. So one thing that I've been working on personally, I've been talking to the Forest Service over in San Gabriel. Are you guys familiar with the word buff? So like a buff is like, say you do your tag or whatever, and then the city comes and rolls over it. That's called, you got buffed, right? So I thought it would be cool, because like if you ever go hiking, has anybody ever hiked to the Bridge to Nowhere? Yeah. You see all the graffiti out there, right? And the rangers, they don't know what they're doing. They just roll it in gray, and it looks just as bad as the tag, you know what I mean? So my idea is, it's called Art Buffs, and just be a bunch of like graffiti artists like me that could go out there and actually restore the rock to look like it's a rock, or clean it off with acetone or something like that to actually bring it back to how it was before, you know? So that's a great way to, for me to give back. And then another way is the Oasis program. We could do that, which would be great. Let's see what else we got. So we also, Gregory asked me to share what my perspective is in regards to art and what I believe to be true when I create a piece. And that's a pretty deep question, but I'll try to do my best. I really believe that we're all art. Everything we do every day is a piece of art. And people like me, we're just good at like putting that experience on a small piece of surface, you know? And he also asked me to talk about 3 things that I would hope that you guys would take away from my talk. And one is, human expression isn't a bad thing. We just need to direct its energies into a way that's beneficial for everybody. And 2, we're all responsible for our communities, and we can all help shape the futures of the kids in our community. And as I was talking about, Oasis International is a great example. They're basically funded by a bunch of area banks, which, everybody hates banks and stuff, but they do a lot of good work, They're not all horrible people. And, jeez, sorry, I lost my notes. Yeah, so basically, graffiti is just a human expression as basic as dancing or drawing or anything else. So, let's just embrace it and use it. So, I would like to open the floor to questions.
No, we're going to show some of your work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you're not allowed to go out there without a work permit visa. So, I had to come up with this whole story about how I was going to go see a girl, and I was like... So they called her, and they're like, hey, this guy's here. Is he going to hang out with you? And she's like, yeah.
Did they call the prime minister? Can LeBa come in? He's like, yeah, come on in and paint some walls.
Yeah, so they're like, he says he's just here to hang out, but he's got all these clothes with paint all over him. What's up with that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I was going to paint some murals. For fun, though, not for work, So how come there's 6 months of text messages missing from your phone? I'm like, Eventually, they couldn't pin anything on me, so they had to let me go through, but it was like 2 hours, man. I almost got banned for life from Canada. I would have snuck in through New York, though, if I had to. So. This is a foam sculpture I did. It's pretty cool. It's actually freestanding, which is pretty nuts. This is another painting up in Canada. This was the first mural I did for Casanova Pendrell. They were the guys that actually hooked me up with Oasis, and that's how I found these guys, because I was there. They do, at the end of the year, they bring all the kids in for all the programs that they've taught and, kind of have an award show for them and show off everything that they've done. So that was a lot of fun. It's always fun. This is the new mural I'm working for them for their new studio that they're going to build somewhere around here. I don't know where it is, but this is just a funny little fish I painted over in Long Beach behind a burger stand. Love those burgers. This was that painting that we did for Foster the People. If you guys want to watch a YouTube video later, you can just look up Foster the People mural time lapse. We did this painting in 7 days. Me and 2 other guys with 4-inch hand rollers. It was insane, man. My hand was like a claw for 2 weeks after. I fell asleep on my couch. I lived in a big warehouse like this, and there was a big, bright, white wall, and I woke up in a panic, because I'm like, the wall's blank. I also got vertigo one day, because you're up on those lifts, you're 160 feet in the air, and they're kind of swaying in the wind, So you sway, and then it comes back to the wall, and you're like, and you sway, and it comes back to the wall, and you get off, and you kind of got sea legs and stuff from the lift. One of the guys threw up. It was hilarious. But the stuff you see in LA when you're 160 feet in the air are not stories you can tell to decent people. It's one of my neon pieces for that Have Mercy bar. Let's see. Oh, we did this piece for Inner City Arts in downtown Los Angeles. Just a pro bono piece for them. Pretty cool. All right. I'll tell you one more funny graffiti story. So me and my buddy Scepterhead were on top of a building. It's like a 2-story building. We had to it was back in our more scandalous days, so we rented a ladder from Home Depot. And we climbed up there. We had to manhandle this ladder all the way up to the top of this 3-story building, because we needed it to lean against the wall while we're painting it. He's like, hey man, there's a helicopter flying around. I'm like, don't worry about it, bro. There's always helicopters flying around. He's like, it's getting closer. I'm like, dude, you worry too much. And he's like, dude, it's right on top of us. And boom, hits us with the light. We're like, oh, shit. So we're if we grab all our shit, throw it off the roof, we're jumping over 3-story gaps, climb all the way down. And then the helicopter was chasing somebody else. So then we climbed back up and finished the job, Oh man, another time we were painting in Melrose, and me and my Mexican buddy, And there's no cars around there at night. Like for some reason, once it hits 2 a.m. in LA, you can just do whatever you want. There's no cars, no police, nobody anywhere. And so I'm sitting at a light. I'm like, I'm just gonna go. So I take a left at the red, and like, we got our gloves on, we're covered in like can paint and stuff like that. As soon as I take a left, a cop like pulls up next to us with his lights on. I'm like, oh shit, we're like taking our gloves off, throwing the cans under the seat. And he rolls up to me and he's like, hey man, you gotta stop at the lights. And then just keeps driving. And my buddy's like, that would never happen with me, bro. Okay, so I would like to open the floor to questions, and there's one.